Hello, this is Coach Wilson, and this is Unit 9, Day 7. Today's journal, we're going to be talking about speakeasies. All right, and that's going to be kind of the topic of today, talking about prohibition, talking about some of the things going on. Oops, sorry about that. So about your journal, okay, first of all, make sure you tell me where you would run your speakeasy. I mean, what type of building or place you would hide it in. Remember, speakeasies were generally hidden underground and were in places where cops would not raid them, or at least where they could not see them selling or distributing alcohol. What would be the front of your speakeasy? Like, what would be the place, like the business that made it to where it didn't look like a bar? And would you become extremely corrupt or just try to help the community with serves to drink and make a little money? So today we're going to be talking about the Roaring Twenties, and we're going to be talking about a lot of those things from your journal, talking about speakeasies and prohibition and everything going on. Now, what are some reasons why the 1920s in the United States were known as roaring? Okay, and first of all, we're going to start with Marcus Garvey. Okay, and Marcus Garvey was a politician who was advocating for the Back to Africa movement. He also established the UNIA, which was the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And the idea here was that African Americans should take the things that they've picked up in America, take them back to Africa, and rebuild or build up the country of Africa rather than staying where they are not appreciated. That's kind of the idea. Now, during this time, Calvin Coolidge has also become president, and despite the scandals that went on towards the end of his presidency, Calvin Coolidge wins the election of 1924 in a landslide. And funny enough, they did not blame him for the things that had went on under Harding. Okay, so all of those political corruptions with the Ohio gang and all that, he didn't get blamed for. Silent Cal, as he was known, was very shy and known for using few words. However, he was a big supporter of big business and very much less supportive of ordinary citizens. All right, so he tended to fluctuate towards what we would call in today's society the 1%, but more of that upper echelon of society. Coolidge also is known for rejecting a plan to aid victims of a Mississippi River flood, saying the government had no duty to protect citizens against the hazards of the elements. And so basically, Calvin Coolidge viewed it as it was not the government's responsibility to take care of individual people, but to provide basic laws and support for the country, and then let people kind of operate under that. Now, following Coolidge's presidency, Herbert Hoover is elected in 1928, and he's responsible for creating the Food Administration that goes and checks to make sure things are have dates and all those various freshness issues with food. And he's also going to be responsible for creating the FBI, which aided in the Palmer raids. And so Herbert Hoover is a very well qualified person for the position of president. And he had held a cabinet position under Harding and Coolidge. And so the nation had a lot of respect for Herbert Hoover. In 1928, the election revealed some small holes in the armor of the Republican Party, but the dramatic changes in morals, manners, and fashion by the nation's youth was much more obvious. Okay, so by the time he becomes president, you're beginning to see large changes in society and just people being different. It's just a different place. Now, one of those things that changes was music, and the jazz age came about in the 20s. Jazz music had a large effect on the taste and manners of the age, the way people danced, the way people acted, the places they went, etc. And you see jazz music kind of almost correlate with prohibition and the banning of alcohol sales. The exciting rhythms captivated young people on dance floors. We had dance marathons. Dances started on the corners of streets in African American communities and then moved to saloons, into nightclubs, and from there on to popular music halls and into popular culture. So what happens here is you're going to see, African American communities influencing other communities with the jazz music, okay, that really grows large in African American communities first, and then it spreads to the bigger whole of community and what, for lack of a better term, we'll term as white communities. Okay, you do still see quite a bit of segregation during this point. You're going to continue to see segregation, and that's why you didn't have a lot of places where whites and African Americans came together, and so that's why you see it kind of spread throughout time. Dances such as the cakewalk, the bunny hug, the turkey trot, the Charleston, and the black bottom, all dances that formed out of African American communities. And many were critical of the former generation, okay, and critical of one generation accused the other of being too liberal and too, out of control, and the other says that they were too reserved and, should not have been, as I guess you want to call it, racist or judgmental as what uh, the other generation had been. Now, Louis Armstrong, probably one of the most important jazz musicians of the time. I highly suggest you go listen to some Louis Armstrong songs. There's a couple that I enjoy quite often. Now, women of the 1920s were probably one of the biggest groups to change. Okay, with the right to vote also came changes in morals and values in women's eyes. Okay, you had this group known as flappers, and they were women who came from a popular, or the name came from a popular drawing of young women dancing with their boots open and flapping. But flappers is going to take on more of a different name to mean, women who wear short skirts, have short hair, smoke and drink or sell, alcohol and cigarettes in these clubs, or dance in nightclubs, or just promote birth control. There's a part of our society that looked at birth control at one point as something as bad as, I don't know, marijuana or drugs or whatever. Think of something illegal today that there's a lot of conversation about. That's kind of how birth control was then. You're also going to see jazz age men and their characteristics change. The automobile is going to change the way men act. Reckless drinking, irresponsible flirting with women that were not their wives. And there's just a lot of change in the values and the way people approach life as a whole. You're also going to see many advancements during the 20s. Movie theaters are going to begin to boom. Actors like Charlie Chaplin excelled in silent movies and feature productions. You're going to see sports heroes such as Babe Ruth, Jack Dempsey, and Gene Tooney, Gertrude Ederle, the first woman to swim across the English Channel. There's tons of people here that you're going to have, growing in the lore of sports history as well as just advancement in society. And that goes back to kind of our term of the Roaring 20s. There's so many changes from moral values to advancements in society to things that people are doing in their leisure time. Also during this time, you're going to see the flight of Charles Lindbergh, who was a stunt pilot, and he's going to be paid $25,000 to fly nonstop from New York to Paris in a plane known as the Spirit of St. Louis. And everyone else had died that had attempted this journey, but he was able to complete it, and Lindbergh becomes an instant hero. Now, during this time, you're also going to see new businesses form. A&W Root Beer, Kleenex, AMP Grocery, Ford, and manufacturers can put large amounts of money into these advertisements. And you're going to see new ways to travel, which makes it easier for these companies to expand into new places. Because with new modes of travel means they can ship things easier. It also means that people can get to where their business is easier. And you're just going to see the economy expand as a whole. As part of this expansion, Henry Ford is going to develop the horseless carriage. All right, and starting in 1903, he produces his quadricycle. And within 7 years, he had already sold over 30,000 vehicles, which are known as the Model T. And Ford's whole idea was making cars affordable, making it to where the everyday man could have a vehicle. And he did this through using the assembly line, and you can see the picture down there of how the car starts in one part and moves through the production facility until it gets to the final product. The companies like GM will improve on Ford's ideas with cars with color. Okay, so having different color cars, Ford just produced black cars. He didn't, try to do anything fancy. But finally, in 1927, the Model A will have a different color to the car. So that kind of gives us a brief idea of everything going on here in the Roaring 20s. There's so much more we could talk about, but we just don't have time. But please make sure you get your vocabulary words down, get both words, and I will talk to you soon.